I feel compelled to do a little bit of a backdrop here based on some things that were brought up, and I'm not accusing anybody in here of being codependent. If this little speech, I'll keep it short, doesn't resonate, then it's just not for you. But I know it's for at least one person in here, and probably more like 2 or 3. So, and I am overgeneralizing, and I hope this doesn't come off as critical or sarcastic. I just use the term fixer. I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. I mean, you care about the relationship, you care about him, you want to save the marriage from sinking, but some of you, in fact, I might be so bold as to say most of you have crossed the line from working on the marriage to overworking on him, which is fixing. So I have found, I don't find this with the ASD men much. It happens, I guess, but most of the NTs, or certainly many of them, want to fix him. And that would be, if you have this need or wish to fix others in general, you'd be a great social worker or a psychologist, but it's not really a healthy outlet for a spouse. And you have, and I'm saying your intentions were good. Your heart was in the right place. You were doing the best that you knew how to do. You thought you were doing the right thing. So again, I don't mean fixing in some negative sense, but you have discovered that this relatively unhealthy wish to fix him has pushed him away. And you may have, justifiably so, viewed him as someone who quite honestly needs to be fixed. I will tell you this, that if he has ASD level 1, his self-esteem is already in the toilet. And he has, in most cases, a generic he, couldn't fit in from childhood. And so as you have discovered, sometimes even your neutral comments, especially your critical comments, and in some cases your constructive criticism, get downloaded as criticism because you already didn't feel good about him. So now we have easy recipe for disaster, where honestly some of his business could use some fixing, but his self-esteem will download your fixing as she thinks I'm defective or flawed, that there's something wrong with me, and it just has gone over like a shit show. So one problem with this fixing business is that he may not find fixing to be something that he is willing to do. He's probably not viewing himself as someone who needs to be fixed. He's probably not going to try self-help strategies to fix, although some of the guys in the men's group are kind of undertaking that. So your attempt to fix is, I would say, pretty much 100% of the time doomed to failure. That sounds very bizarre and maybe even over-exaggeratory. It's not. So I work with ladies all the time, and I work with men all the time, and the men will say, I don't want to be changed. I don't like her to try to change me, and her attempts to change me basically alienate me, and now I don't trust her anymore. And in too many cases, with the hyperfixer lady, she has become his number one source of anxiety. So if he has ASD level 1, he's going to view fixing as an attack. You've already lived it. Now, I also find as an interesting side note that many of, and again, this is not a criticism, many of these NTYs that have this need to fix, they were abused, sometimes severely as a child. So I run into this a lot. It's a pattern that I keep running into that I had not anticipated. So in reality, her need to fix him stems from a deep sense that she was damaged as a child. I know this sounds like a very loose tie-in, but I'm discovering it is not. Of course, abuse damages self-esteem. Why wouldn't it? And that low self-esteem is a result, if your parents were abusive, that low self-esteem was a result of constant parental disapproval, rejection, emotional abuse, sometimes physical abuse. And as a child, if this is fitting for you so far, as a child, you may have blamed yourself for your parents' abusiveness. In other words, your belief was that it was your fault that you were abused and you were a bad daughter, you were misbehaving, and at some level, maybe even operated at an unconscious level, you felt like you deserved it. Then, in adulthood, this fictitious NT lady can project her damaged self onto this now autistic husband. She always saw herself as less than perfect and someone who herself was in need of repair. So she was really trying to fix that part of herself that she saw as flawed and at fault when she attempted to fix him. All of this obviously goes on at an unconscious level. Because you would have never had the thought until now, well, if the truth be known, I was emotionally abused as a child. I did feel like it was my fault at some level. I do have a damaged self-esteem. And so maybe it's possible that my wanting to fix him ties heavily into me feeling like I need to be fixed. So underlying this is this unconscious reasoning that if I can fix him, I will be loved rather than abused. Back to this business of the daughter, in this case, being abused. And then she hooks up with this guy who happens to have ASD level 1, and he's emotionally absent, and she can, and justifiably so, download this as just more abuse. It's like, I didn't have a father figure that was worth a shit, and now I have another male in my life, and it feels like rinse and repeat. It feels like I'm living this trauma all over again. So in actuality, it is the wish to fix others that represents this term that you've heard of before called codependency. That used to be a term that we only used. By the way, I was a drug and alcohol counselor back in the day. Not that you necessarily needed to know that. But way back then, we're talking late 90s, that term was only used in the world of substance abusers. But it now has been broadened to include any type of relationship, not just the sober wife with the alcoholic husband. So it's characterized, as I'm sure you know, by denial of what is really happening, low self-esteem, possibly excessive compliance to abusers. This is a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer this, but have you been one to walk on eggshells a lot? Anything to keep the peace? Oh, I don't want to say or do anything to upset him. And so you end up not setting some boundaries. You end up not letting your needs known, and you stuff and you stuff and you stuff it. And then you blow up, all hell breaks loose, you drive him away, now he's mad, and then you go back to stuffing again, stuffing your feelings and stuffing your needs and wants. So people who are truly codependent in the fullest sense of the term, they kind of take on the role of a martyr. So I'll wrap up by saying this: by constantly putting the needs of him before your needs, that gives you the sense that you are needed, which is codependency. And self-sacrifice to the needs of him is disastrous. If you're young, you haven't felt the full effects of that yet. If you've been in this kind of relationship for 10 or 20 or 30 years, you're probably depressed, and you probably have some autoimmune disease and some other things going on. So, rhetorical question, you don't have to answer this. Are you a fixer? Do you or have you sacrificed yourself for him? Do you feel like in this neurodiverse marriage, you're constantly in a position of being taken advantage of? So, that's going to fit some of you. It may be the vast minority in here, I don't know. But I run into this so much, it's almost a guarantee that when I have a group of NT wives, this group is 29 deep, there's 20 on the call now. Without exception, there is a certain percentage of ladies that this message right here resonates with. What's the moral to the story? What's the message? You may want to, I'm not saying don't work on the marriage. I already said a little bit ago that you want to do that. And you in the neurodiverse marriage, you'll have to do that. But be aware of this invisible line, and it is invisible, I can't point it out to you, where you cross from, I care about the marriage, I want to make it work, I do still love him and care about him, and there are some things that really need to be fixed, quite honestly, to I'm always in fix-it mode, and I'm making myself sick as a result. Now I'm more concerned about him than myself. That's what we want to avoid. Hey guys, this is Mark. Click on the join button underneath any of my videos, then click on members only videos, and then click on join. And for $9.99 a month, you'll have access to members only videos, which are excerpts from previous workshops I've conducted for NT partners, ASD partners, and the neurodiverse couple. New videos will be uploaded weekly.